Joining us now, Pentagon Press Secretary, retired Rear Admiral John Kirby. Admiral, it's good to have you on with us again. Let me begin with the new NBC reporting this morning about the American role in the sinking of the Moskva, that flagship of the Black Sea Fleet for the Russian military. What exactly was the American role? Our reporting says that Ukraine saw a ship out in the Black Sea, asked American intelligence officials, is that the Moskva, that we confirmed that and said, that is the ship, that's where it is. Is that accurate?
Well, I'm not going to get into the specifics of the intelligence that we provide Ukraine, Willie. I think you can understand that. We do provide them information about Russian units, both at sea and ashore, that allows them to help continue to defend themselves. That's part of the information that we've been providing them now for weeks. But it's not helpful, I don't think, to get out into the particulars and specifics of that. What I can tell you is we didn't provide them specific targeting information for that ship, and we were not involved in their decision to strike that ship.
But so it's fair to say there was some role by the United States in identifying the ship, at least.
Yeah, I'm just not going to go there, Willie. I'm not going to get into intelligence that we're providing the Ukrainians. We do it every day to help them defend themselves, and we're going to continue to do that. And one of the best ways to be able to continue to do that is to not talk about it publicly.
And what is your view of not just this NBC report, but the New York Times before that the United States was sharing intelligence about the location of leaders in the Russian military, about this information getting out to the press and then to the public? Is that helpful or hurtful to your cause?
It's definitely not helpful. It's hard to see how it's helpful for sources to be talking to reporters about intelligence that's being provided to Ukraine to help defend themselves. Now, look, on that report, and you saw me at the podium, again, we provide them what we believe to be useful information, timely information about Russian units, but we are not giving them targeting information for senior military leaders on the battlefield. Again, I just think it's incredibly unhelpful. In fact, I'd say unconscionable for some of these leaks, for some people to be out there talking about specifics on the intelligence that we're providing the Ukrainians. We want to be able, Willie, to continue that process to help them defend themselves. And part of that isn't just the materials and the weapons, it's the information. And we want to be able to preserve and protect that information going forward.
Do you agree that leaks like this help Vladimir Putin make his case, his propaganda, that you see, we are not just fighting Ukraine, we're fighting the United States, we're fighting Europe, we're fighting the West. This, in effect, is a world war, a proxy war for the United States?
Yeah, I absolutely do. In fact, Dmitry Peskov, his spokesman, said something similar just yesterday, acknowledging that, that this is just the United States now involved in some sort of proxy effort. So it's not helpful. And again, I mean, when you talk about intelligence, the less said, the better. And if we want to be able to continue this effort to help Ukraine defend itself, we need to be able to protect that kind of information. So again, totally irresponsible that people out there talking about this.
So, Admiral, every day when we talk about the issue of the war in Ukraine, and it is every day that we do it, as you know, in addition to words like targeting that come up, the word logistics comes up almost every time we talk about the war. And a lot of people out there think that the word logistics means take a right and take a left and, the street signs. Could you, from your experience, explain to our audience the degree of difficulty for the Russian army in moving an army across the battlefield with all the component parts, mechanized units, infantry units, of what that encompasses?
Yeah, there's an old saying, an army moves on its stomach. Basically, that's a flat way of saying that, any army that operates on the ground needs to have supplies, food, fuel, ammunition, spare parts. And if you don't properly plan to have that material available to your army as it tries to move forward, then you won't be able to move forward anymore, or at least you won't be able to move forward as far as you want. And frankly, Mike, that's what we're seeing in the Donbass right now. The Russians have made uneven, sort of incremental progress, not very far, not very fast. And one of the things we believe that's the case is because we think they are worried about getting too far out ahead of their supply lines. They did that in Kyiv, and it cost them the battle. At least that was part of the reason it cost them the battle. And so they're still trying to figure out and fix their logistics and sustainment issues. They don't have a very nimble process for providing support and reinforcements and resupply to their troops in the field. They use, roads, paved roads. They use railroads, and they don't have a very nimble process such as like we do. And so it's continuing to cause a problem for them. Not to mention, Mike, that it's the spring there, and so it's very muddy. And so they are now limited to paved roads and railroads in order to try to get stuff to their troops. They can't really go off-road right now.
So, Admiral, just looking at the map, you can see the strategic importance of Mariupol to the Russians. What are the concerns about what is going to be happening in Mariupol over the next 24, 36, 48 hours, especially as we lead up to May 9th, Victory Day in Russia?
Yeah, someday they're going to write a book about the resistance in Mariupol, or probably many books. I mean, it's just incredible that the Ukrainians have been able to hang on, at least in that steel plant, and force the Russians to devote firepower and effort to Mariupol. They are still bombarding it. You've seen the video. You're showing the video. We know that they still have Russian troops dedicated to Mariupol. Some have left to go north, but there are still troops there, and they're there because the Ukrainians are still fighting back. And we know that they're fighting bravely. And we know that the Ukrainian armed forces are trying to get help to them, but they're not able to do that. And obviously, we want to see all the civilians that can leave safely.
And what is the possibility of getting more civilians out of there realistically?
I mean, I think we obviously would love to see that happen, and I know the Red Cross is working on this, but unfortunately, it relies on the Russians and their goodwill and them actually making good on their word to allow these people to get out. They've let some out, but it's not clear that all of them are out. And so again, we call on the Russians to do the right thing here. First of all, stop bombarding Mariupol, but short of that, to do the right thing from a humanitarian perspective and let these people out.
What do we know about how many Ukrainian troops we have that are still remaining in there to fight this, what their stockpiles are? What do we know about what's left in there to hold up the fight?
We don't know a whole lot, Mika, to be honest with you. We think there's at least dozens, maybe 100 or more. We're not sure exactly how many are there. You've seen they've posted some videos about their willingness to continue to fight, but also that they're obviously short on food and water and ammunition, and there's no way to get things into them right now. The Ukrainians have, not for lack of trying, but they're just not able to get them reinforced. So it's a desperate situation, but they continue to fight on, and they continue to force the Russians to devote energy, effort, firepower on Mariupol, and they have not been able to take that plant. And they therefore, no matter what they say, the fact that they're still bombing Mariupol tells you that they don't believe they've actually taken Mariupol. And obviously, you looked at the map, you saw it's a strategic location on the Azov Sea. It also allows them a better land bridge to Crimea. And of course, as we've already seen, Mika, they are taking some of the forces that were devoted to Mariupol and trying to move them north because they want now to focus a little bit more on the Donbass.
Admiral.